Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to Breslev Web Seminar, Parsha Shmos. It's the first Parsha in the book of Exodus, of Shmos. And there's quite a few different lessons that we can learn from the Parsha. The first one is V'ele Shmos. It's called Shmos, the names. Why the names? What is this so important to enumerate the names of the Jewish children, the children of Yaakov who went down to Egypt? And quite frankly, Reb Nosson explains that a name contains everything. How would you describe something that you eat upon? Well, it's got a flat piece of wood, got 4 legs, and every time you want to describe it, you'd have to describe a piece of wood, or glass, or ceramic, or metal, doesn't matter, and 4 legs to hold it up. Or isn't it easier to say the word table? Say the word table, and you've got what you want. Reb Nosson explains that everything about a person is in his name. Everything about anything really is in its name. And these are the names of the children that went down to Egypt. Eile Shmos B'nai Yisrael Haboim Mitzrayim, that they came to Egypt. Es Yaakov, and each man and his family came. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and so on. What the Torah is telling us is that the names of these tribes, because they were such tzaddikim, they were able to go into Egypt and survive. Because they kept their Jewish names, as the Medrash says, they never changed their names while they were in Egypt. They went down as Reuven, Shimon. They came out as the tribes of Reuven, Shimon. The idea is that they never gentilized their names. They kept their Jewish identification. And that's what the rest of the book of Shmos, it's all called on this word, Shmos, this one name, to tell us that your name embodies everything you are. Everything that happened in the rest of the 40 chapters of Shmos, all of it is embodied in the names of the Jewish nation. It's the continuity of the Jewish nation because they kept their names, they kept their identity. The idea of a name is the identification of the item. And they kept their Jewish identity no matter what happened. They never let themselves fall into trying to imitate the civilization they lived in. They never let themselves descend to a lower standard of what they really lived, even though they had their problems, and the Medrash tells us they were idolaters, they did a lot of other sins there. Whatever happened, but there was that spark of Judaism that remained with them. And that's the point that carried the Jews throughout the book of Shmos, indeed throughout the whole Chumash. That's what really identifies us as a nation. We have that identification, and we have that feeling and that leaning toward it, and this is what makes us such a great nation. Right after enumerating the names, the Torah begins the bondage of Egypt. Paro called together his advisors. What can we do with this nation? What are we going to do with them? Well, the Torah is ongoing. It's not just that it happened 3,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 500 years ago. The Torah is ongoing. Paro was then the head of the leading civilization. They oppressed the Jews. And that's what happened throughout history. Whenever a civilization rose up, the first thing they did was oppress the Jews. Take a look. Even a couple of weeks ago, they had a UN declaration what to do about Israel, and the Palestinians who are looking for whatever they want. So they had a vote in the UN, right? All the nations of the world, or at least the Security Council anyway, and they voted that Jerusalem and the West Bank does not belong to Israel. That's what they said. Well, they've said a lot of things about us in the past too, and all it does is show that they have no feeling and no understanding about what life is all about, right? Paro said, let's enslave this nation. The UN, and with the sanction of President or ex-President Obama, right? May his name rot, right? All they had was get rid of Jerusalem and the West Bank and whatnot. Nothing really changes over the years. The more things change, the more things remain the same. What you have is a idea of somebody who wants to rise to the top. You cannot rise to the top unless you oppress the Jew. That's what the Gemara tells us, the Medrash tells us, Kol hametza liYisrael na'aseh rosh. So Paro took over the kingship, leadership of Egypt, and he said, we have to destroy the Jewish nation. And he made them work in bondage. Vayimoreru es chayeihem ba'avoda kosher. He made their lives miserable with very hard work. B'chomer, with clay. Uvelvenim, with bricks. Uv'chol avoda basoda, and all the work in the field. Eis kol avoidosam, all their work, asher ovdu behem beforech, all the work that they made them work, very, very back-breaking labor. The Zohar Kadosh, Reb Nosson brings this down. The Zohar is in Tikkuni Zohar, and Tikkun Chaf Aleph. And it says, Vayemoreru, they made their lives bitter. How did they make it bitter? Ba'avoda kosher, with very difficult work. Kosher from the word kushya, from the word question. B'chomer, chomer meaning the depths, the difficulties of how do you face this problem with the halacha. What's the halacha in this problem? Uvilvenim, from the word lavan, white, how to purify and how to check out and work on the law till it becomes clear and clarified, the clarification of the law. Everything out in the fields because they couldn't relate to it. This was the difficulty of the Egyptian exile. And this is what the difficulty the Zohar says of all our exiles. We have problems, we have frustrations, we have challenges, we have difficulties. How are we supposed to overcome them? If everything to us is a question, it's not clear. I don't have any clarification of how to serve Hashem. I'm supposed to be a Jew and serve God. I'm supposed to put on tzitzis and tefillin in the morning. I'm supposed to pray. I'm supposed to study Torah. I'm supposed to keep Shabbos. But if I don't know how and when and where, how am I supposed to do it? This is the greatest difficulty, and this is the part of the exile that we're all in today. Our questions. Now, you're not supposed to ask questions. That's what people say all the time. You can't ask questions like that, but it's not really true. The truth is, you cannot ask questions. The truth is, what do you do if you have questions? If you have questions that need answers, what do? They're burning in you, and they're challenging you, and you don't know what the answer is, and you're really suffering. What are you supposed to do about it? Right? That is the crux of the exile, and that's how the exile started, and that's how the exile continued for all those years. Right? Okay, there was backbreaking labor. We know the Midrashim speak about they took men, they made them do women's work. They took women and made them do men's work. It's very similar to today's world, where the women are out in the workforce and men are starting to house husband, or whatever you want to call it. whatever. All this is part of the mentality. Where are you? What is your name? What is your identification? And where are you holding? And how are you going to go forward in life? And this is one of the very difficulties that we have today. This is Parsha Shmos teaching us that there's always problems. There is the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu in the Parsha. Moshe is called Vayar Ki Toivu, right? His parents saw that he was good. Rashi explains he saw the divine presence with him. Moshe Rabbeinu was special from birth, granted. Different than a lot of other people who are not so different from birth. We grow up, we're exposed to a lot of different enticements. That's our bondage too, right? I have to have this, I have to have that, I need this, I want this. That's also a type of bondage. Moshe Rabbeinu was free of all that. Still, he had a struggle because he was raised in a foreign environment. He was raised by Paro, Paro's daughter. He was raised in a place that was distant from anything Jewish. But yet his innate goodness came forth. And he saved the Jew from being beaten. And he had to flee because of it. He put his neck on the line for his people right from the start. And he went out there. He saw the daughters of Yisro were being oppressed by the other shepherds. He saved them. He put his neck on the line. This is Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's why Hashem chose him as a shepherd for Klal Yisrael. Somebody who's not selfish, somebody who thinks of somebody else, is a category, a concept of Moshe Rabbeinu. He's a concept of somebody who will look forward to doing the job right and to being able to help another Jew and let us all live. And eventually, because of that, Hashem appeared to him. Hashem appearing to Moshe, does he appear to us? Moshe knew what he had to do. Hashem told him directly. God spoke to him directly. And what about us? How are we supposed to know? The idea is, if we're good, if we try to help others, if we want to help others, Hashem will be there for us. The ideas that we get, the thoughts that we get, the words that we say, will all be guided by Hashem. And with that, Be'ezah Hashem, will see an end to the exile. Moshe Rabbeinu will come to Paro, he'll challenge him. The leader of the world, the leaders of the world, what are they, if not also messengers of Hashem, just like Moshe was a messenger? But Moshe was a messenger of redemption, while the others are messengers of oppression and hate and whatnot. And if we do the job right, we extend ourselves to try and do good for other people. With that, Hashem will help us, that we will see the beginning of the redemption and a salvation for Klal Yisrael. Amen.